Hello and thank you for joining me today. I'm Lee Hopwood, CEO here at the CCMA, and I am delighted to be joined today by a panel of industry leaders to put self-service right smack bang in the spotlight. And as always, these sessions are interactive, so please go ahead and share your thoughts in the chat and put your questions in the Q&A. And those questions I plan to put to our panel. So joining me today on our panel is the person responsible for customer care and business change at Superdry, and that's Alan Mullen. Hi, Alan.
Hello, how are we doing?
Good. Thanks for joining us. We also have guest services manager at Odeon, Sam Bellis. Hi, Sam.
Hello.
Hi, good to have you with us. And also joining us is the senior CX consultant from Curve, Paul Cox. Welcome, Paul.
Good afternoon.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. Now, we've seen a real surge in the move to self-service, giving customers access to services without having to speak to a human. And we've seen the increased use of smartphones, pressures on time with customers looking for convenience, and also balancing trying to serve more customers, frankly, without investing in more people. And which is a real shame, because actually we know that people like to talk to people, but we're going to address that a little bit later. But there's also an opportunity to invest in the technology to get those journeys absolutely brilliantly. However, what we have seen through our research and talking to members is that over the last 12 months, voice has started to grow again, and we can pull apart why that's happened and where that's going. But I have a hypothesis, and that this is not just because people want to talk to people again, but because the technology isn't yet meeting customer expectations. That's my hypothesis. And customer expectations are moving at such a pace. How on earth can we keep up with that? And I had an example just a couple of days ago where I don't often phone contact centres. This week I seem to have phoned quite a few. And I had an experience where I thought, do you know what, this ID&V process is really good. And it wasn't self-serve, but this process I went through, I thought it's really good. It's just really slow. And that for me was an example of where technology has been implemented. It follows a great process, but maybe it's just not keeping up with my expectations anymore. So coming back to the self-service, let's put it in the spotlight. Paul, I'm going to come to you first. I like to start with, what do we mean? What do we mean by self-service in the contact center?
So I think when people talk about self-service, our minds always jump to those old-fashioned IVRs for booking cinemas tickets and things like that, which were so painful and so much worse than talking to a human being. Modern technology has improved, and chatbot journeys are much nicer and are a better pace. But I think that self-service really starts with web journeys, and it's, as contact center professionals, we tend to focus on the web chat, the voice, the email journeys, but actually our role can be to help people on those web self-service journeys, because the website is a much richer environment. It's a much better customer experience, because it's visual, and because there are so many more elements to it. So I would suggest that we include that web self-service as a very important part of our discussion here.
And I guess, as well as the traditional, if you like, chatbots or what was IVR, chatbots and interactions via bots, you're right, there is websites. You are giving people access to the information they need so they don't have to pick up the phone. And I guess you've also got apps where you've got apps on your phone that are taking you through processes and giving you access to information as well, Paul.
Absolutely. And those journeys need to be designed and perfected in the same way that a chatbot or an IVR or a voice bot would be. But from a contact center perspective, we have a great opportunity to help people along that journey. And it is the old teaching people to fish analogy, where if you can notice that a web self-service journey is failing and jump in to help people to learn how to complete that journey, or to identify that actually here's an edge case, here's an exception that we haven't dealt with in our web self-service journey, and therefore we need to quickly get them through to an agent and recognize the fact that they've already put a lot of effort into trying to self-serve, and so their patience is running out, and therefore we need to get them quickly through to somebody who can be empathetic and understand that they've had a bad experience, and then try and rescue that experience.
I'm completely with you. That yeah, there's always a need for a get out to talk to a human. So Paul, what do customers really want? From what I know, you do quite a lot of reading around and research. Do they want to talk to customer? Do they want to talk to someone, or do they want to self-serve? What are you seeing? Is there a change in demographics? Some different demographics want different ways to serve.
So I think fundamentally we're all busy now. So we all want a quick, low effort resolution to our problem or our request to whatever we need. And that is the core that we should focus on. So thinking about what you were talking about with your IDMV experience, there's nothing wrong with the journey. It's just that it had been implemented in a way that was just way too high effort for you. You didn't want to put that much effort into that part of the journey. And so it didn't meet your expectations. So the thing that perhaps is changing is the amount of effort that we feel is reasonable for us to expend in getting to that resolution. And that's the thing that we need to keep up with.
And so, what does that perfect journey look like, Paul? Is it and we've got Superdry on the call here, and we've got Odeon. So let's take retail as an example. Maybe there's other examples that you want to pull out, but there's quite a number of processes that self-service can really help. So, what does the perfect journey look like?
So the perfect journey looks like a triage process that very quickly understands what it is that we're trying to achieve. And then a well thought out process. So, a where's my order process is a great example, and probably the most common that we see in retail, where we can very quickly gather the information that we need to be able to help that person without asking them to go away and look up information that's painful to find, without asking them to go through a very complex process that perhaps gathers information that we don't really need. Just understanding that they need to get to their outcome as quickly as possible with as little effort as possible, because by the very essence of the fact that they have to contact us, there's already been a problem in their customer experience, and therefore we're already on the back foot, and we just need to fix that as quickly as we can, with without putting them to any inconvenience that's unnecessary.
I completely hear you, and yeah, that's what we hear a lot from the customer service side of things, is that when someone's trying to, if they've reached out to you, it's because there's a potential problem. But I guess there's also, and I'm sure Sam will share with us later, the process of booking onto things, booking onto to watch a film at the cinema. Isn't so much of an issue. Interesting, we've got a comment in the Q&A. Are the chatbot journeys actually really any better? They still seem very clunky, and a lot of them are not helpful at all. They are rather frustrating, and then all we want to do is speak to a person. However, not always a choice for that. Thank you for sharing that, Marianne. So if anyone does have any comments or questions, please do feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A. But Alan, you're responsible for the contact center for Superdry, a major clothing brand, one that I know my son loves too. How are you using self-serve to support your customers?
So I think our journey probably started about 5 or 6 years ago, and I think Paul made a good point about the web self-service. And I think all retailers most retailers tend to have this now. Most of your inquiries are around returns and deliveries. So we started 5 years ago with being able to process a return label or get a return label yourself online. And that's quite a mature process now. So for most companies now, it's really easy to create a return label. And also the Wismo piece. And for those that don't work in retail, Wismo is where is my order? Because before I worked in retail, I didn't know what that meant either. So where is my order? And that's as simple as being able to track where your order is. The problem is that then people then switch channels, because if it doesn't give them the information that they want, then they need to switch into a channel and speak to someone else. So I think where we were at, we started with those web self-service journeys, returns and deliveries. And I think that took a little bit of time to refine. I shared it with you a few weeks ago that we created this new return portal and customers were still contacting us. And we worked out that it's because our order numbers contain an underscore. And you'll be amazed at how many people can't type an underscore. And when we discovered that, we created some help for customers because we couldn't change the order numbers for data reasons. And we cut that contact down by 80% overnight. So I think when you look at your web self-service journeys, it's about really keeping them simple and really understanding what that customer needs to do. We then moved on to the chatbot, and the comment about the chatbot, they still divide opinion. We spent years refining our chatbot. Is it perfect? No. Is it much better than it is? It certainly is. We use a chatbot. We use a help centre. We're fully digital, so we rely on a chatbot to do that triage process, to do the ID&V up front, so that the customer doesn't have to do that. But also to answer questions using a knowledge base that sits behind it. So our journey is web self-service, chatbot and help centre, and we've done really well with that. So I think we've been very successful with that so far, and then we're now looking at the future and how we evolve that further.
And what impact has having that investment in self-service had on your colleagues in the contact centre?
I think it's reduced cost, of course. I think you have to say it, that, in peak periods, particularly retail, we have to go out and recruit a lot of people to cover a lot of contact, because your contact can go up, fivefold over a peak period. So actually reducing those costs over peak periods is significant. But I think the impact on people in the contact centre is that they're now, they're dealing with, when they get a customer through, they don't have to do ID&V, they don't have to find out what's going on. We've answered that, so they're very much focused on resolutions. So when a customer arrives in our contact centre, again, we are fully digital. We don't have phones. We've triaged that. We know why the customer's contacting us, and we're able to resolve that much quicker. And hopefully, in most cases, customers are able to self-serve themselves. We work really, really hard to refine our chatbot. We do it every day. Every day we look at it. What questions aren't we answering? Where are customers getting frustrated? Where are their blockages? And we update articles. We point customers in a different direction, and we're very actively involved in encouraging self-service. But at the same time, if you need to speak to someone, you can speak to them straight away. We don't create blockages. So when you can self-serve, or you can speak to someone straight away. And we learned that the hard way by making it difficult at first, and we realised that doesn't work for us. It's not good for our brand. And so if you want to speak to someone, you can, but ideally we'll self-serve, because that's, as Paul says, customers want quick and easy.
Yeah, I completely get it. And so wherever anybody is, on whichever channel you're enabling them to self-service, they can switch to talking to someone live in your contact centre. Yeah. Or is that via email or WhatsApp chat?
Yeah, well, they can switch to email if they want. We don't have Messenger yet. We're not using WhatsApp. It is one that we will do in the future. But things were going pretty good as they were, and we were in a bit of a transition period. So we thought, let's not change anything right now. But I think that the customers can speak to us when they want. So they can drop us an email if they want, but we find that a lot of customers self-serve. So about 74% of our customers self-serve, and 95% of them get the right answer first time. That doesn't mean they don't contact us, but that's the feedback the customers have given us.
And I assume, therefore, that the people that you have in the contact centre, they're all digitally savvy as well as customer service savvy. And if you are bringing on a new channel, then you provide the support that they need. You're giving them that learning journey.
Yeah, definitely. It is. It was a bit of a steep learning curve for a lot of people, because we were a phone-based contact centre, and we went digital. I went digital around 3 years ago, and So for some people, that was a challenging transition. And it's changed how we recruit as well. So we ask different questions when we're recruiting. We have to change and look for specific skill sets that lend itself well to working in a digital environment. But we've still got people that, in fact, a lot of our contact centre still people who were with us 5 years ago. So we have successfully transitioned those people into this new digital world.
And a question that's just come in: did you incentivize or invest in the contact centre to move to digital channels? I'm assuming that's to support people, your frontline colleagues, to go digital.
Yeah, we did. Well, it was we had all the capability there. When I said we went digital, we had lots of channels. So we had chat, we had phones, we had email, we had loads of we had mail. We had people sending letters into us. And actually, the reason why we went digital and reason why we focused on self-service was because we looked at what channels gave the best resolution, the quickest resolution for customers, and also the highest success rate. And that's why we went down the digital route. And I will always say this because it's one that divides opinions. And I always end up bringing this up on chats, even though it's not the subject. But turning off the phones isn't for everyone. I used to work for Zurich Insurance. Zurich has a very different profile of customer. We wouldn't turn off the phones when we worked at Zurich because that's a completely different journey. But in retail, it does lend itself well, and we've got CSAT scores, we've got Trustpilot scores that have actually improved since we went digital.
So I have to ask you before I then interrogate Sam. I have to ask you, from a customer journey perspective, what is your vision? Where would you really want to be from a self-service perspective at Superdry for your customers?
So my view on it, and I don't want to do any spoiler alerts because we'll probably come on to talk about AI. Our chatbot and our auto email responses work really effectively. Our contact per order has gone from 25% to 14% over the last 5 years, and has been as low as 10%. But we look at 14% as being the right place to be, because if we go lower than that, customers say we're difficult to contact, and we can see that. So 14% is about right for us. We've done the web self-service, we've done the chatbot and the help centre. The next stage, I think we were at the CCMA conference last week and people were talking about AI, and it's really interesting because when you go around different companies, people have got different perceptions of what AI is. So when people think of chatbots as being AI, they're not really AI in its true sense, because they've got lots of information sitting behind them, and it's a pre-programmed knowledge base that's feeding things back to the customers. My vision is to now take that Wismo journey and those types of journeys, those high volume, repetitive contacts, and actually manage them end to end using AI. So integrating different systems to do that. So when Paul talked about Wismo, at the moment, if you can't find your order using your tracking, then you want to speak to someone. Actually, the process, once that goes through to someone, is the same process every time, and it's a repetitive process. And actually, we looked at the use case; it lends itself really well to managing that end-to-end journey using a machine. And that's not to say we wouldn't allow someone to speak to a human. Actually, we can resolve that much quicker, which means if a customer contacts us on Black Friday when it's really busy, they don't need to wait in a queue. They can resolve it in one go. And so we've got about 3 or 4 use cases we're looking at right now. And I would say by this time next year, I'd be looking to implement AI so we can manage the end-to-end journey for customers.
Thank you, Alan. You're right. I'm going to ask you a bit more about AI a bit later. And I'm also going to answer the question that's gone in the chat around your CSAT NPS effort scores and what impact the work that you're doing to improve the self-serve journey is actually having on your contact centre. But first, Sam, I'm going to come to you. Odeon Cinemas, you're going to have a completely different customer journey. Some folk would say Odeon Cinemas and Superdry, both retailers, surely quite similar, but you're different. How are you providing self-service to customers today?
So yeah, we absolutely are different, but I think the very core of what both Paul and Alan have said is kind of resonated with us too. So our self-service journey definitely began on the website with just that richer environment, giving people the options to do the things they want to do. The biggest point of contact we get is usually around refunds for people that want to change the time they're booked for. And so that naturally evolved into an option to be able to, if you have the app, refund your booking yourself, as long as you have an account and you can go in and just click on that. You can refund your booking and rebook for another time. We also have our help pages have been and always are extensively refined. We go in, we keep that information live and relevant. We see which articles people are using, which articles people are saying are useless, and we review that constantly to make sure that we've got that right and where we need it to be to help people out on their journey. And then just this year, we've also brought in a chatbot, which again, just echoing kind of what Alan was saying there, is very much more of an interactive help page. So the chatbot itself is not AI, they're talking to me, essentially, pre-recorded responses in the chatbot, where it will feed the information on, hey, you want to do this, so you can go to this page and do this here, or you can go here and administer to your account, or this is how you perform this action, etc.
And just like Alan, you're both going through a learning journey. You're both continuing to invest and keep things moving, and continue to look at how you can improve that customer experience. So Sam, I have to ask you the same question that I asked Alan. From a customer journey perspective, what is the vision? What do you see as when we've got there in today's terms, this is where I'd like to be?
So I think that, yeah, learning definitely. The chatbot especially has been quite a big learning curve for us. And I think the most important learning from that is, well, it's two things really. One, guests, customers will never use your systems the way you expect them to. And they will 100% be like, well, no, this is what I want to do. And two is to listen to that feedback, because people want to feel like they have a choice as to whether they want to speak to someone or whether they're happy to do it themselves. If you make that a forced process, if you make it so you have to do the self-service, people are going to rebel against that. They're going to naturally go, no, I want you to do this for me. That's why I'm contacting you. Or hold on, I don't want to go back to that page I've just come from to do the thing you're telling me to do now. So a big part of it was, originally we had quite a hardcore chatbot that was like, hey, you don't need to speak to anyone. You can do this yourself. We're empowering you. And guests very much were like, but I'm talking to you, you do it. We've changed that recently to have, well, a few months ago now, to have it so that you sort of like, hey, do you want to do this yourself, or do you want to speak to someone? And we've had much better responses to that. The triage process that the bot's there to perform is working much better and much more smoothly. So that's where we are now. Where we want to be, what's the end goal, is, I mean, in an ideal world, have a super AI in there that can be conversational, that can have the right tones, that can know what people mean, even if they've got a spelling mistake, even if they've communicated it in a way we weren't expecting, so that people can interact properly with that bot, and so that it can bring up the options to do things within that widget, so that it comes up and it goes, hey, you want a refund? Just pop your information in here and we can do that for you through the widget. Hey, you want to do this on your account? No worries, we can do that. Just fill out this information in the widget and you can do it there. And to also bring those journeys to other channels. So chatbot sits within the help pages on our website, but there's no reason that we can't, and technology is advancing at a rapid pace in this area, introduce that to other channels. If we expand, for instance, into WhatsApp, which is becoming super popular with guests who want things done really quickly, and then sort of bring that into our DMs and social channels and that sort of thing. So ultimately, the vision is to have a self-service route on every possible channel, but with the option to speak to people when you have something that's more complex, to give our guys the time to deal with those really nitty-gritty, complex contacts.
And Sam, I'm going to put to you, there's two questions in the chat and Q&A that are slightly similar that I'm going to put to you, Sam. One of them is around how much time do you invest per week in fine-tuning the bot? But then separately, do you have teams that are feeding the help and the content that's in the bot, and keeping that up to date?
So how much time a week? I've never actually mapped that out. Every day I spend a couple hours doing it, and my colleagues will, throughout the week, also spend a similar amount of time looking at the bot, looking at the responses, making sure that we're not missing anything huge, that the feedback we're getting from guests is acted on, that we know what they're saying. In regards to having teams that sort of feed all that through, from the very launch of our very first sort of self-service options, it's been super important to us to be really collaborative with the entire contact center, that this isn't just like my project or my colleague's project. This is our entire contact centers project. We're all working towards this, and we have a very sort of open system of communication with our guys. So everyone in our contact center will come to us with suggestions, will come to us with ideas on what they think guests want, with feedback that they've received. And although we're the ones implementing it, it is very much a collaborative effort. Everyone's on board. Everyone wants everything to work for the guest.
Love it. Thank you, Sam. Alan, I was gonna say, what's your view on this?
Yeah, I was going to jump in. Do you know, it's a really good question. I think both questions about the time you spend on it and the dedicated team. Now, we've got a small contact centre, and it sometimes surprises people, but I've got 25 people in my contact centre outside the peak period. And so we all wear multiple hats, hence why my job title is customer service and business change manager. At Superdry, everyone wears a couple of hats. And what I've got is I've got a team leader and an assistant team leader whose responsibility is to keep those things updated. And so they're my technical people, and they probably spend about half an hour a day updating it, because once we've built it, you know, and we improve it and refine it all the time. And for people that haven't got, I don't know where everyone's at with it, but you can go in and look at all your questions and say which ones haven't been answered and how often haven't they been answered. And every day you can then point that to an answer. So every day you're improving, every day you're developing it. And it's really clever. It can work well.
Thank you, Alan. And there is another question in about ROI and impact, and I promise I am going to get to that. But Paul, I have to bring in AI. You know, we talk about chatbot, self-service is more than chatbot, but where is AI, and in particular generative AI, having an impact on self-service?
Okay, goodness. So first of all, 95% of the chatbots out there today are intent-based. They're not generative AI. People are starting to use generative AI. It has so much potential because it is so good at language, and it is so good at understanding, not only from a creative, not only from a generative perspective, but also from an understanding the question perspective. What we're seeing at the moment is that people are starting to have success with pointing their generative AI at a trusted source of knowledge. So being very explicit in their prompts to try to say to it, right, I want you to answer this customer's question. I want you to provide a personalized, tailored answer for them, but do not go to the internet. Do not look at your general training. Only go to this knowledge that we've approved and we know is reliable. Having said all that, it is still very early stages, and the vast majority of people are putting a person in the loop at the moment. So they will use that to deliver answers to an agent, where the agent can just do a little bit of sanity checking before giving that answer to a customer. So it's not true self-service, it's agent enablement. But there are people doing it, and we are very close to it being a safe thing that we can all be confident that it's not going to have some crazy hallucination and be rude to one of our customers, or, you know, and put us on the front page of the newspapers.
I like that. I like that. And Paul, on the AI side of things, we've seen across the water the EU AI Act that did come into regulation, into legislation in Europe. It's not here in the UK, but I'm sure it will influence both consumer behaviour, because they'll see what's happening overseas. But it may also have an influence on government legislation. And one of the points is that you have to make it clear that you're speaking to a person or a machine. How is our industry here in the UK responding to that, and the wider AI Act? Paul, are you seeing us?
So I think, yeah, I know, absolutely. So there are a couple of things. So it not only applies to companies based in Europe, registered in Europe, but also those who serve customers in Europe as well. So we all have to be a little bit careful that if we have customers that are based in Europe, we have to apply to that. I think from the perspective of letting people know that they're talking to a bot, I would absolutely say that that's 101, that's a fundamental rule that anyone implementing any kind of bot should start off with. We're not trying to pull the wool over our customers' eyes. We need to make it very clear when they're talking to an AI. And we need to make it very clear that they can, if they're not comfortable with that, they can swap to talking to a human being. And there will be people out there who just don't want any information, and if they, they don't want a single sentence from them going to an AI at any point. They just want to opt out of that and only talk to human beings, and we should absolutely respect that.
And that's because of the transfer of data, and that data being only in a tech environment, and their potential lack of trust of that the use of that data.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. Alan, are you influenced by the AI Act? Are you embracing it? Are you aware of it and making sure that you've got your eye on it? And leaning into that, what is your view of the generative AI tech in your contact center?
So I would, it's where I see us going in terms of the sort of, again, to echo what Paul said there, I always, when people talk to me about conversational AI, for me, it's about finding a quick resolution for a customer. It's not about a robot replicating a human. Okay, I don't think customers want necessarily to speak to a human-sounding bot. They want a quick resolution. We are. Everyone says it always at the start of the journey. I think we've got to where we are right now, which is the sort of typical chat bot. We're about to move into that world of using generative AI, but keeping it very, very simple. We've got 4 use cases that we're looking at. In terms of legislation, I'm going to rely on the experts for that because I'm not technical. So if we're working with partners or with my own IT team, I'm going to rely on them very heavily to make sure that we're ticking all the boxes in terms of legislation. And what I've got 4 very simple use cases, which covers about 60 to 70% of my contact. Now, that doesn't mean I expect 60 to 70% of people to be fully self-served by AI, but I'd expect a percentage of those customers to have their journey managed by an AI journey, which will have different systems talking to each other and making decisions to get the right outcome for the customer that a human could make.
And what's making it difficult for you to realise those 4 use cases? What's getting in the way? What are the challenges that you're facing?
I think really for me, it's about finding people that are on your wavelength with regards to the technology. I think this is a really important one. We work in contact centres, we work with various partners, and actually finding partners that understand your world is really important. And I've been looking at AI for, I would say, the last 12 to 18 months and talking to different people about it. I've met with multiple people about AI, but again, people talk to me about conversational AI. People talk to me about, replacing agents. That's not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is someone that understands retail. And I think that's important. If you work in, I've worked in insurance before. If you work in insurance, if you work in the cinema, if you work in retail, you need to find someone that's on your wavelength. And because it's a new technology, because it's a new approach, I'm not keen on being that first person to dip my toe in the water. I'm quite keen to see who are other people working with and making it successful with. And I think it's a really important thing is to know you've got a trusted partner that you can work with that understands your world, that understands retail, because they're much more likely to deliver success.
And Alan, I'm going to ask you this question, and then Paul, I'm going to ask you to see this question from a wider perspective. It's one that's come in on the Q&A. Alan, have you got multiple bots for different services? So your 4 use cases, are you looking at the same bot, or are you using multiple bots? And for what you've got already?
No, it would be through the same bot. So we wouldn't have multiple bots. Again, it's very new, so I don't know, but I don't know what it all looks like. But no, it wouldn't be. You wouldn't be moving to multiple bots. And when we talk about bots, it's not just going to be about this AI journey. It's also going to be emails. So we'll be emailing customers and finding resolutions. So rather than emailing back and forth, we're looking at emails, we're looking at Messenger, and we're looking at the online chat as well. So it's not just across one platform, across all platforms. I believe you can apply it to voice as well, but as we don't have voice, I'm not looking at that right now.
So, Paul, what do you see in the market? Multiple bots in one organization, in one contact center, or are people building on the one?
Okay, so my take on this is that consistency of customer experience is absolutely critical. Both so regardless of their reason for contact and therefore the journey that you might take them on, and regardless of the channel that they choose to contact you on. So you know whether it is it all any of the chats, so social chats, as well as web chats, whether they want to contact you by email, by voice, that consistency is absolutely key. Whether behind the scenes you've architected this to use multiple bots or whether it is a single bot doesn't really matter, providing that the customer doesn't notice. So they should have an absolutely seamless journey, and it should be absolutely consistent no matter their contact reason. And that, I think, is the key design consideration.
Paul, I'm going to stay with you if I may. There's a question around CRM systems, and arguably you don't necessarily need to use a bot to self-serve. You could have your CRM automating pieces. You could have RPA doing automation to support that self-serve. From the conversations you have, Paul, is that rife in the industry? That's happening right across the board? And is that working, or is that one of the reasons why people are looking to things like bot technology?
So if you are self-serving and you're always going to use your systems of record, you know, be they CRMs or order systems or whatever in the background. So you're always going to want to connect to those. The user interface layer, that bot can be part of a contact center solution. It can be a standalone AI solution. It can be something that's offered by the CRM vendor. It doesn't really matter in some respects. It doesn't necessarily belong to any of those. The key thing is that if that journey doesn't work out, we can quickly get somebody to the right agent with the right skills to help them with context so they understand, and it's as seamless as possible an experience. So I don't think where that bot sits or where the user interface originates from is important. It's just protecting that customer journey and making sure that a human being is always available. And the bots that certainly that I've seen that have really crashed and burned are the ones where there is no way to get through to a human being, and it is just well, we won't talk to our customers anymore. We'll put this bot in place instead. So that again is a golden rule from my perspective.
Yeah, I'm with you, Sam. I want to ask you. You've been listening to that part of the conversation there. Some of the challenges, some of the opportunities. What for you are the critical success factors for self-serve at Odeon, and you know, what are the challenges that you're trying to overcome on a day-to-day basis as you go on this journey?
I think so. Ultimately, success looks like everyone who can self-serve wants to self-serve and does so. And our advisors then have the bulk of contacts, the little things that come in volume taken away. They can focus on the stuff that really needs a human mind to look at and resolve. The challenges that we face are sometimes a communication one with our current chatbot, which is intent-based, it's not AI. The communication isn't working. So the guest is saying one thing and the bot's not really understanding. So it's either giving wrong information or saying, I'm sorry, I don't know. And then they end up having to come through to us anyway. And that sort of feels like a useless step when all of us use a bot that basically goes, oh, I don't know, speak to someone. It's like, well, why'd you make me speak to the bot in the first place? So that's the first thing that we'd overcome. And, you know, speaking of AI, that is probably one of the main benefits of having AI involved in a chatbot from our point of view. As Alan touched on, it's never about replacing a human. It's always about having that actual understanding so that the customer, the guest, can get exactly what they need as fast as they can and go about their day. So yeah, I think communication is definitely the main challenge, and also is um, having all the systems in place so it's one touch for the guests, so that if they're going into a bot, they can do the self-serve component within the bot. There's a lot of APIs to backend systems and making sure those backend systems talk to each other and all that sort of stuff. So technology going fast, but the linking technology between those things isn't always there. And I think those are the two main things that stand in the way of our perfect vision.
So Sam, I'm gonna we've got another question in the chat around our ROI and impact. I'm going to read all three questions out, and then I'm going to ask Sam if you can respond to them first, and then I shall ask Alan and then Paul if you've got anything else to add. So the first question that I'm going to read out is: how did your volume of contacts change for the digital channels when you introduced the question, do you want to self-serve? And how was your ROI impacted by offering easier escalation to non-digital channels? That was one question. The other question that I'm going to skim through to: what has been the customer service sentiment response to the digitalization and self-serve change? Has CSAT, NPS, effort scores been affected positively? Hopefully not negatively. And the other one, I'm sure there was another question around impact and ROI. Sam, where have you seen the impact, both from a customer perspective, operational, cost to serve? Where have you seen the difference?
So look, we're very early days with our chatbot, Odie. He's wonderful. Please go and have a chat with him. When we first introduced the bot, it was very rough, very let's see how this goes. And yeah, our CSAT, which is usually super high, did come down, which was very sad to see because it's not come down in a decade. So it was really sad to see us go from a really high CSAT to a lower one. That's when we started really looking at the intents and refining and looking at the feedback that guests were leaving on the bot. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's I hate robots, and that's it. And as we've built that feedback into the bot, and as we've made it more user friendly, essentially, it definitely got better. Mm-hmm. Then we noticed that really there's no way to. We had it set up so there was no way to definitely get through to a person if you weren't, there's some loops that we'd accidentally put in there and things. And when we added that option in to speak to someone if you want to, or you can do it yourself, CSAT started climbing pretty steadily and pretty rapidly back up to where it used to be. Not quite there because not everything's perfect and it's still very early days, but we're definitely getting there. And the huge bonus that we've seen operationally is that even more so when people are given the choice, instead of getting frustrated because they haven't got a choice and then coming back through a different channel, if they're given the choice, the bot acts almost as a drip feeder. So instead of having a huge queue where they're waiting, they can get the information from the bot, they can decide if they want to do it themselves or not, and then by the time they get through to our teams on web chat or wherever they're going, those queues are much smaller because the queue's managed by the conversations going on within the bot. So when it comes to impact and ROI, there's more work to do. There's obviously a much bigger ROI that we can get to over time. But for where we are now, the biggest impact we're seeing is that people aren't waiting as long when they do want to speak to a person, and people are much happier having been given that choice.
And that's really interesting that, because I remember when we spoke before and I said, how do you know if you're getting it right or wrong? And you said, because our customers absolutely tell us. We get bombarded with, I don't like robots, or words to that effect, and other words. And I guess that's part of what you're having to do. You're having to listen, analyze what's going on, look at those journeys and invest in those journeys in order to get your CSAT back up.
Absolutely. And in order to make anything work, you have to listen to guests. They're never going to do what you want them to do because you know the ins and outs of your systems. I know like the back of my hand how we work here at Odeon. I know how everything goes together. But our guests don't. They just want this done to their tickets or this done to their account. And they don't care about all that knowledge. That's what they want. So if we don't listen to that feedback, we're not delivering the customer service that we commit to. We're not reaching our goals, and we're certainly not delivering the service that people will want to take part in. So yeah, that feedback is the lifeblood for us.
Is there a specific measure, Sam, that you're monitoring from a self-serve impact perspective? Not just necessarily chatbot, but is there a specific KPI you're monitoring, or is it actually no, we're monitoring lots?
We're monitoring a lot of things. The main thing when it comes to, because chatbots are our biggest and newest and sort of centerpiece of the whole thing, when we get that right, we expand into other stuff. We're looking at percentage of chats passed through during business hours. So things that they've spoken to the bot and they end up coming through to us. And that percentage over time has varied wildly just with the changes we've made when we've got it right, when we've got it wrong. So that's the main thing we look at on a day-to-day. But we also make extensive use of reports from all sorts of other teams within Odeon and all sorts of other reports that can be run from our digital guys to bring together a bigger picture of what self-service looks like. And obviously, we're super excited about that at the contact center. But as a company as a whole, Odeon is also very much excited and invested in these options.
Thank you, Sam. Alan, I know that you were making some notes as I was asking those questions earlier around impact. Tell us, how are you measuring it? What impact has self-serve had on you guys at Superdry?
So I think one thing I want to say, and some of the questions about making a big change, this wasn't something we did overnight. Turning the phones off and going fully digital, that took about 2 or 3 months. That you could say that was probably a big significant change. But the self-service journey has been 5 years in the making, and it's an ongoing one. We'll still be talking about it in 5 years' time and improving things all the time. So it's not a big bang thing. It's about having a roadmap and growing and learning and having a strategy around what you want to do. What we've seen is, I think I mentioned earlier, contact per order went from 25% to 14%, which was great for during a peak period. Sam touched on CSAT. What we saw with CSAT is that we'd be brilliant over the year, and we'd be sitting, Trustpilot score was really good over the year, and then we get to December and lots of things outside of our control. 2 years ago, I always mention it, the Royal Mail strikes, everybody had challenges, our CSAT went like that. And that's what was happening year on year. So we'd spend all the year with this really strong CSAT, then peak would happen, it dipped down, we'd spend the year building it again. And last year, our CSAT went up during peak for the first time. And that's been a repeat thing for 4 years. Our Trustpilot is actually it's on an upward trajectory and has been for the past 18 months. And that's not by accident, that's by design. And one of the things we have measured, to answer people's questions about the digital journey, is how difficult customers find it to contact us. And so we look at sentiment and we look at feedback around how difficult we were to get hold of. We take data from customer feedback and we look at it, and customers' feedback about us being difficult to contact has been reduced by 70% since we invested in the digital journey. And we don't get that feedback. We did when we first started, John. A bit like Sam was saying, you have to go through a bit of pain. You have to learn where is that tipping point between self-service and making it difficult for customers. But it's all learning. It's a journey. So there's not one magic wand solution. It's about knowing your customers. And I always say bots. When I first started working with bots, I had a manager said, let's get a bot. Let's make everyone self-service. But we didn't know why we were getting a bot. We didn't have use cases and say, these are the use cases we want to resolve. Let's get a bot to try and resolve those. We got a bot and said, how can we use it? And I think that's the same with AI as well. Okay, lots of people are saying, let's invest in AI. Well, no, let's not. Let's think, what's the problem we look to try and resolve? What is the solution? How can we make the customer experience better? And then how can we use the technology to enhance that? And I think that's always a starting point. What is it you're trying to achieve? Don't just invest in the technology. Invest in what that customer journey you want it to look like, and then invest in the technology that will deliver that.
You know, I love that, Alan, and as well as lots of advice and learnings there. I assume that you are listening to your customers and listening to the journey that they want to go on. Do you ever ask your customers what they want, or do you more listen into? I'm referencing back to, if you want a car, it's a black one. And smartphones, Apple says that had we actually asked the market what they wanted, then smartphone probably wouldn't have been born, because we didn't know. Are you, Alan, listening to the behaviours of the customers that are going through your digital channels in order to make a difference, or are you asking them what they want? So
we get feedback from customers on every digital journey. When customers interact with their bot, they're asked to rate the success and how successful this journey been. So we've got all that data coming into us as well. So we use that. It is very data driven. So it's very much about what customer feedback is, what customer sentiment is. We've got Trustpilot that gives that feedback. We use all that to create an insight. All of the insight, we put it together, complaints, everything goes together, and we look at, okay, where can we improve that customer journey? What I have got the advantage of is that Superdry, all of our staff buy Superdry, so they all have the journey. I've got people all over the world who are experiencing our journey, and they tell me from someone that's on the shop floor in Cheltenham to our CEO who's in the next office to me right now, they will tell me as soon as something goes wrong. They will tell me when they can't return, and actually that's a really good source. Your employees, if they're using your services, if they can't return, if they can't track their order, they will come and tell me about that. So yes, the data's great, but actually people tell me that having successful journeys is really invaluable as well.
Thank you, Alan. Paul, this is fascinating. You're talking to organisations and folk like Alan and Sam all the time around how they're deploying self-serve. What are your critical success factors? And what's your response to what you've heard Sam and Alan talk about?
So I absolutely love what Alan's been saying about it being a journey, something that takes time. And going to what Sam was saying, you have to very carefully monitor what your customers are telling you as you go along that journey. So we always say to people to start a chatbot or a voice bot with triage right at the beginning, because it's just asking them the question, especially with the chatbot, the experience is identical to the one that an agent would give them. If you're put through to an agent, they say, how can I help you today? And the chatbot's doing exactly the same. When it comes to understanding what people say and how they say it, how your customers express the different reasons for contact, there is AI can now mine your data. So, if you've been providing live agent chats for a few years, then you can mine all that data, understand exactly how they express that, and therefore make it a really smooth transition. And we normally say to people, just do the triage and then put them through to a live agent. Don't do anything more than that. You will get enough ROI to make the people signing the checks feel comfortable that it's paying for itself. But at the same time, you're learning about how people express themselves. You're getting customers used to the fact that, to your point, that they've seen that they've connected to an AI to start off with. They then go through to an agent. And then you can start collecting a little bit more data. So, you say you want to return your order, right? Can we just, take this information about you? Again, exactly what an agent would have said to them. And then we can put them through to an agent. And then we can start maybe answering questions. Then we can maybe talk about those. What are the simplest processes, the most frequently requested processes, and make that journey really seamless, but at the same time promote it. I think this is so critical. Not only make it nice and smooth, watch what the NPS scores, what the customer effort scores are as we go down that journey, but also make sure that you're delivering an ROI, you're making things more efficient, but without degrading any of the customer experience along the way, and learning from all the data that you capture as you go through that. So I definitely try to set people's expectations that to do it right takes time, but sometimes you absolutely get the people who want the big ROI immediately up front and a big bang, and that's a really hard thing to sell to your customers.
And I think what we've heard from Sam and Alan, where they have implemented it, having an expectation that is going to have an impact on customer experience. But if you're going in with those eyes open, then hopefully you can catch it quickly and make the change quickly so that the impact is minimalized as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you can explain to customers, look, there's a 5-minute wait time for a live agent, but you know what, we can answer your question straight away with what do you want to give it a go? And it's very much a soft nudge. It's not, you can keep talking to an agent. We're not going to stop you talking to the agent, but if you want to give this a go, actually here's a benefit. So you're kind of selling the experience to them. but you're giving them the choice. You have to, the choice has to be with the customer. We don't want to force our customers to do anything.
Love it. Thank you so much. So it feels like some of the, just coming away with some of those key messages there, slow and steady, listen to your customers, and keep fine tuning, keep working through what you've got and where you're going. And Alan, also being responsible for business change, you're also one eye into the very far future to make sure that you're getting ready for any changes that might happen, especially through peak.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, at the moment, I think my role used to be working towards peak every year, and now I'm looking at peak in 5 years' time. So my role has very much changed now, but it is, I think, we need to be looking forwards. I loved the session, again, the conference last week when we were talking about the Google glasses, and I came away thinking I could see agents wearing, not that size, but I could see agents using something like that in 10 years' time. And I think it's really exciting what's out there. But again, it's not about solving everything today. It's about that journey, that roadmap.
I love it. And I'm actually going to finish on a comment that was put in the chat earlier. Home assistants, Alexa, hopefully I'm not going to upset any households. Hey, Google, are becoming even more prominent in households. What role do you see these playing in self-serve options in the future? For example, rather than going to a business website for help and using their chatbots, will they instead simply ask Alexa and expect a resolution? I think that's cool. And I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us today. Sam, Alan, and Paul, really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your views, your experiences, your thoughts. And thank you also so much to Curve, the team at Curve, and supporting us and enabling us to have this conversation today. I wish you all a fabulous rest of your day.